Hi, welcome to Hot Cocoa and Books with Victoria. It is a pleasant day filled with the goodness of the things around you, so make sure you take the time to see those things. What is something that you are thankful for today? Please let me know in the comments. I am thankful today that you are here. I'm very thankful for the creativity God has given people to write books. I hear that it is Jane Austen in July. I am only a few years into my actual reading of Jane Austen's novels, and finally I have finished reading the last of her full novels, I think. I don't know if Sanditon is a full novel or not, but I have not read that one yet. I know a lot of people right now are reading Mansfield Park, which is great because at the very beginning of this year, I set loads of books that I told you guys I wanted to read this year, and that was one of them. I actually really enjoyed this. This, I would say, on like a list of my favorites, it's not at the very top. I think it might be my fourth favorite. Oh, the character of Fanny is such a delight. I really like the way she reacts to things, her spirit, and she is our main character in this story. I believe this is a little bit of like a Cinderella retelling, but with it not having any stepmothers, but with the idea of someone that comes from not so great of a wealthy family, just like a middle class to lower class family that ends up living with a rich family, and what that looks like, and how she is not treated that well, honestly, how she's able to come out of that and end up getting some wealth. So when this story starts, I believe Fanny is about 10, and she has an older brother, William. She's really, really close to him. And Fanny's mother, she has two sisters that I can recall. There might be other siblings that are mentioned, but definitely two sisters. And Fanny goes to live with one of the families at the beginning of this book. She lives with her other aunt a little bit later. But what I really like is that she grows and matures in her spirit and how she handles things. And I think she has a little bit of discernment throughout the story too. So the family that she ends up living with at the beginning, so her aunt and uncle, the Bertrams, the matriarch of the family, he has a plantation in Antigua, which we get a little bit of that distaste for slavery from Fanny in this, but it's there. So Fanny and I, we're friends, of course. So I found that to be interesting because he gets all his wealth from his plantation. They have 4 children. There's Tom, Edmund, Maria, and Julia. So Fanny, she is with her cousins. We get to see her interactions with each of them, what that looks like. She gets mocked a little bit here and there by some of the family. But one thing that is really sweet is Edmund, she starts to form a nice friendship with, and they seem to be kind of close. She gets along with him. He's sensitive to her. But we see as the story goes and they get older, there are love interests. And Fanny, she is a bit quiet about her love interests, but there are people interested in her. Then there's a duo that comes into the story, the Crawfords, and they're brother and sister. And they make a lot of drama in this. It's very interesting to learn about. I don't want to go too deeply into this book, but there is a lot of story and there were a lot of characters, so it was hard for me. And I feel like I need to watch an adaptation of this to maybe grasp it a little bit better. And I know I watched the Billy Piper adaptation, which is like probably one of the worst ones to see, but that's the only one I have seen of this around like 2008. So I like completely had forgotten that story. I just remember seeing it. So I like didn't even know the story when I got into this book. So now I'm like, maybe I should watch something, because that kind of helps me when there are too many characters to have that visualization and better understanding of everyone. But for the most part, I just really adored how Fanny acted and how she doesn't just give in to things that are maybe pushed on her a little bit, or she gives time to think and to wait, but she also tries to be obedient. She tries to be kind. And I just really appreciate her as a character. Definitely one of the better characters in all of these stories, I think. The only thing that I didn't really like too much in this story is that the romance that we have that comes much later in this, there's no like attachment of seeing that romance blossom. And I really would have liked to have seen that. So I was kind of let down because it's kind of just like, and then this happens and you're like, but how did that happen? What was the development of that really? And I guess in a way we sort of saw it, but like not the romantic part. And I wanted that sweetness because we did see someone who was kind of fickle and so like obsessed for a while, and then to realize like, oh, this isn't right for me, and then to choose something else. So I was just like, I would have liked that. I don't know, maybe other people saw that a little better than I did. That was the only thing that kept me from wanting to rate this higher. Definitely well written. Song for a Whale. This goes into my lovely a summertime bingo for the sea creature, which I had mentioned in my vlog that I was going to be doing that. So anyway, I ate this book up actually pretty quickly. Like, this was a really nice story. I know that in my last review video, I had a deaf girl representation. This one is another one, but this is way better. This is so good. This has a lot more realistic deaf situations, I think, as someone that has lived a little bit of what that feels like and understands it to a point. So this is a middle grade book. We have Iris. She struggles in school. She's like the only deaf kid in school. There's even this girl, she like acts like she knows how to speak in sign language, but it's like doesn't really, and she's trying, I guess, to communicate, but it causes some problems. And Iris, she's obsessed with radios. Now, there's something that I need to tell you. When you are deaf, you really do feel vibrations, and it's actually pretty soothing. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's a comfort. Like, for me, it was a comfort, even though I could hear a little bit. But yeah, just the feeling, it was nice. And so she works with radios. She fixes them. She loves them. And it's like her collection, but then she sells a lot of them to get some money. Even though she's like young, this is something she really loves doing. But when she is in class, they have this story about this whale, and this whale can't communicate with other whales. There's something wrong. And she's starting to get very interested in learning about this whale. So she starts to research the whale and tries to figure out how she can find a way for herself to communicate to this whale maybe. And it gets her into some troubles here and there. She has a little bit of disobedience that happens. She goes behind her parents' back like twice, but there are family members that help her go behind their back, which is a little crazy. Beyond that, this is a really good story. I loved learning about Iris and about whales even. It was great. And the person that wrote this book actually is fluent in ASL. She's not deaf, but she's worked with several people that are over many years and has been a translator for deaf people. So I just like really appreciated whatever research and just her own experiences with deaf people, how she was able to bring that in here in a really good way. The only other content other than the going behind parents' backs would be that she pushes someone at one point. So that was kind of mean, but there are consequences to her actions. So just keep that in mind. This is really good. I think a lot of kids would like this. This is great for adults too. For Summer to Passport, there is water as one of the themes. It's funny because I actually had the second book from this series as the one that I wanted to read ultimately. And then I realized there was a first book. And so I put the other book, I believe, on my summer TBR list, but not this one. So I was like, well, I better read this book first. And you don't really have to read either one before the other, honestly, now that I've read both. But I am going to talk about both of those books. And so this one was for the water prompt, The View from Coral Cove. And I liked this book better than the second book. And I didn't think I would. I thought I would like the second book better. And they definitely have similarities, but I'll get to that when I talk about the second book. But this book, this is really cute. We have Maya, her great aunt had passed away and left her place. So she decides, you know what? I think I'm going to go there. I'm going to work at her shop and I'm going to enjoy the place like I liked it when I was a kid growing up. And once she's there, she comes across this veterinarian named Brody and his daughter, Ashlyn. As she starts to form friendships with them, she learns their stories. And of course, this is definitely a romance. A clean romance. There's like no faith in this, which really surprised me because I've read several Amy Clipston books, so I was expecting a faith element, but there was none. There is one part in this that I need to say for content. There's talk about someone that had an affair, and then their explanation of why they had it, kind of they're trying to make an excuse for it, like it was okay. And I was like, that's a horrible reason. There is definitely regret from that action though. And there's also someone that had been impregnated out of wedlock. There are talks about addiction problems, there's grief, and there is talk about death. Obviously, I said her great aunt died, but there are other people too that are talked about. So it was just one of those sweet books, and I kind of needed a book like that with the week that I had. I needed that lighthearted, good feeling. So then the Lighthouse on the Cove, which is the sequel, this fits the passport to summer prompt of trees. There are trees in this. You could see them right by the lighthouse. There's a tree. I was like, okay, that's good. So this was an average book. Again, I didn't like this one as much because I felt like there were too many similarities to the first book. Now, if you read this book and not the first book, you wouldn't pick up on that. But when you read both, you're like, it's kind of too similar. Like they're going to the same place. It's this girl that ends up in that area, but she doesn't really have a reason to be, but she ends up there. And then there is a single father again. So you have a little girl and they carry on a theme that I picked up on from the first book that went into here, but it's like barely. So anyway, this is about a journalist named Kaya. And when she gets to Coral Cove, I don't want to go into how she got there or what happened because I'll leave that for you to learn. But she finds this firefighter named Reed, and he is like this muscular, handsome guy, and she keeps making a point of that in this book, which is like, okay, I get it, fine. And he has a daughter named Piper that he is trying to raise, and she has her own backstory, he has his backstory. So Kaya and Reed, they start to get to know one another. She is staying in like an attached apartment on his house, but next to it for just a bit. And so they get to have a friendship that forms. So again, it's similar to the first book in that way too. What I really found fun in this one is there's like a lighthouse festival that they're planning, and it's really cute. So Kaya, she has to go through pros and cons of her life to try to decide what she wants to do and a choice with her job, and then versus liking this Coral Cove area so much. I don't really remember any content to be aware of or to worry about. They were both cute stories. The Mysterious Benedict Society, this is book 2 from it. I read the first book several years ago. To my whole family, I said to them, hey, I have this book now. You want me to read it? And they're like, oh yeah, I liked that story. So I read it to them. We all agreed the first book is better, but this was fun too. Man, it was really long and it could have been shortened. Like, this is pretty thick. It's over 400 pages. There are a lot of advanced words that I think middle grade kids would have to like look up or struggle to pronounce, but I think that's good for building vocabulary too. And there are a couple pictures throughout well, each chapter has a picture at the start, but this could go for my summertime bingo if you want to read a book with a boat or a ship. This one's got it. So we have 4 kids that were in the first book. Now they're just a slight older. We have Constance, Rainy, Sticky, and Kate. And they all have this intelligence and a different gift of sorts that it makes them very brilliant. They are all excited to try to be with all their family and to be with Mr. Benedict, who was in the first book. It is his society, but he puts them on a scavenger hunt. And they don't know where he is, actually. And so on this scavenger hunt, he leads them. And they were supposed to go with their families, but unfortunately, they just went off on their own. So that is something to keep in mind. Don't encourage your kids to run away and do things on their own as if like they'll be okay. They're led with these clues and they get into a lot of trouble. There are people that we meet throughout it, and there are these bad guys called the 10 Men, and they remind me so much of John Steed is what I think of. Most people won't know this. I was raised on a lot of like older stuff growing up. So the Avengers TV show, the 10 Men, to me, that's what I was thinking of. They keep trying to get in the way of these kids trying to find Mr. Benedict and the other thing that they're trying to find on their scavenger hunt. Yes, this was a fun, adventurous story. I enjoyed a lot of it. For content, there are definitely some violent situations. There are some crazy things that happen, but it is definitely a great middle grade story, and we had fun. I hope to read the third one to them. I'm sure a lot of people have read these books, or at least the first book. So, all right, so Isabel reads. She has a summer slasher readathon. Now, I don't like horror. I don't like slashers. I don't like that, but I thought I could do some like Christian books or some books that I think will be appropriate for being in her prompts. And so I'm participating. I'm not going to do the reading a horror manga. I'm just going to skip that one, but I'm going to do the other 5 prompts. So one of those was to read a book with red on the cover. And right away I was like, you know what? There's been a book that's been on my TBR list. I've been going through some of my oldest books that have been on my TBR list and going through trying to read them from what I see on my Goodreads all the time. And the one that came to mind was Shattered Sanctuary. I found it to be very fascinating and interesting, but I just finished this today. Probably the wrong time period for me to read this. So I probably would have rated this higher if I read it like last year, but it was a really good story. I just was going through things. So what is this about? This is a thriller. It's a Christian thriller and a bit of a mystery. There's this woman named Erin. She was in the police force. She writes books. They're really popular. People love them. As an ex-police force member, she can understand the processing of solving a murder. So her books resemble that. She goes to the Smoky Mountains and she wants to be in this one cabin. She had made a friend who is was a former FBI agent, and they had been talking, and so she is staying with her. Her name is Kaylee, and they get along really well. But while she's there is this officer who comes by, and because of her skills, he wants her to help with solving this mystery. So Erin is like, okay, she's like, doesn't know how to trust this. There's a murderer out there, and she's like, who is this guy? So she's following him, and she sees the crime scene. She is on the hunt for trying to figure out who the murderer is, and her friend Kaylee also helps her. But because of their relationship and their friendship, Erin is not a believer of God, and Kaylee is, and so now she's starting to get to know what Kaylee's life is like and why her faith is where it is. And there's a lot of talk about faith in this, and it's really nicely brought up in the places that it's brought up. So I liked that. It was really good. And so she's grappling with things from her past, and Erin has to try to understand how to live without that fear of the things that are holding her back. And all the while they are trying to solve this case, there's a string of murders that have been happening. So maybe when I read the second one, maybe I'll like that one a lot better. And I know the third book is coming out in August, so really soon. For content, okay, so they're doing investigations. They talk about some gruesome things. It is done without too much goriness. And there are mentions of like children being killed. And there's also PTSD. There's talk about drugging women. There are ghost stories that are brought up, and the spirit world in regard to that. There are thoughts of suicide that someone has. There's murder. And there is this character that they are investigating that they believe has a hatred for Christians. So that's an interesting take on this. So there is the Ketchupathon that had just started. This is run by Amy's Bookish Life and Books and Jams. So this is just to catch up on your reading in general, to build a pie. Obviously, you don't want ketchup on your pie. I mean, I guess if you're making like a quiche, you could. But the idea is that you build a pie based off of the prompts. And I know I'm probably not doing this in order, but because this had just started and I just finished this book yesterday, the one prompt would be the filling. So I wanted to read the filling, and the one I chose was a book that would stick with you from these filling choices, because this book is definitely going to stick with me and it had an impact. So Bookish Kelly, she had mentioned months ago about this book on her channel and how she really loves this. And I was so interested, I put it on my TBR list right away. And then I got it from Paperback Swap, and such a plain, boring cover. And I was like, hopefully it's got something really juicy inside. So like a pie, the filling is what matters. And the filling mattered a lot. This was amazing. This is probably going to be one of the best books I've read this month. I loved this. Absolutely. I love reading missionary stories. I've always had some sort of love for missionaries. Plus I had an uncle who was a missionary. So when I hear missionary stories, I read them, and I've read many, many, many. So this missionary story is set in the Philippines, and this was written in the 80s, but it's about life in the 60s and 70s that this woman had endured. She talks about like 20 years of her life in this remote village of the Philippines. So if I butcher this one, I'm so sorry, but the Balangao people in the Philippines is what this is specifically about. So we are to go into all the world, to unreached tribes and villages, to spread the gospel. And so she went to translate the Bible into their language and to also be a missionary there. So she briefly talks about her, like very briefly, like she barely talks about herself in this whole book, which is like fascinating. She mainly is just focusing on the people and their story, and I loved it. When she talks about her life, she says how she always wanted to be some sort of missionary, a linguist, and to write a translation of the Bible. She originally wanted to be in South America, but then she goes to the Philippines to be with a woman that she had been trained with, and because she thought that would just be easier because they got along so well. And there is a man that takes them under his wing and calls them his daughters. And so they're learning the language. He helps them learn the language. And then they are starting to spread the gospel there. And the spiritual battles that happen in that place, like they understand spiritual warfare like way too much. And so you get to see that. And she was like in shock with some of the stuff that she saw there. And she explains it. And it is powerful how God transformed these people and how she was able to reach that whole village. And so many people came to know Christ through just her work through the translation. And many times you could see that she's like doubting certain things, but then the people, their faith is so strong that she's like wowed by them and she learns from them. And I love that she explains her experiences and the power of God. And I wonder, I know there's an updated version of this. And so now I'm curious if Kelly, I don't know if you've read the updated version, but I'll have to look into how those people are doing now, like that tribe describe what they're up to these days now that it's been 40 years. So there's definitely violence in this. Death occurs. There are children and babies that do die in this. And there's a lot of talk about spirits or demons. Oh, but this was so good. Delightful. Definitely recommend. Let's pass this along. Thank you, Kelly, for recommending it on your channel. There are a couple other books that I have read, but they're in a series. I have started some other books, and hopefully my next review will be really fun too. If I did not yet post my reading journal update which is actually for May and June, that's how far behind I am in posting about that. But if I haven't done that yet, it will come out this Thursday. So that's just in a few days. So look out for that. It will be a shorter video. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Feel inspired and go out into the world and do your best to shine a light. All right, bye.